Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the West Fargo City Commission meeting for Monday, December 6th. Before we start, we're going to have a little change in protocol because we have some swearing in of officers this evening. So that's going to be moved to the very top out of respect for the families that are here and an open house that they're conducting afterwards. So at this time, Chief.
Thank you. Would you all please stand for the posting of the colors? Honor Guard, post colors.
Present. Arms.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms.
All right, thank you.
At this time, I'd call on Chief Denis Otterness.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis and members of the Commission. I appreciate being able to be here tonight for the beginning of your Commission meeting to introduce you to one of our newest members of our staff, Officer Patrick Thomas. He just joined us recently, and then also to formally recognize the promotion of Pete Nielsen to Assistant Chief with the Police Department. So we'll start with Officer Patrick Thomas. Patrick was born and raised in Bismarck, North Dakota, where he graduated from Bismarck High School in 2002. He attended North Dakota State University from 2007 to 2010 and completed his Peace Officer Training Program through Lake Region State College prior to being hired by the North Dakota State University Police Department in 2011. In 2014, he continued his career at the Fargo Police Department until he was hired by the West Fargo Police Department in 2021. When not working, he enjoys spending time with his family and reading. He has a wife, Natasha, and two daughters, Tegan and Sophia. So, Officer Thomas, if you'd come on up, I'll administer the oath. You'd raise your right hand, please. I state your name, please.
I, Patrick Thomas,
Having been duly appointed a police officer for the City of West Fargo,
having been duly appointed a police officer for the City of West Fargo,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support, defend the Constitution of the United States
and that of North Dakota.
and that of North Dakota.
I will faithfully and impartially,
I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and abilities,
perform the duties of said office
perform the duties of said office
according to law.
according to law.
I will constantly strive
I will constantly strive
to achieve the objectives
to achieve the objectives
and ideals as stated,
and ideals as stated,
dedicating myself to my chosen profession,
dedicating myself to my chosen profession,
law enforcement.
law enforcement.
So help me God.
So help me God.
And if you want to invite your wife up to pin your badge on.
Here, if you would, please.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Want
Chief.
to introduce yourself to the commission?
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Happy to be here and proud to serve. I worked for City of Fargo on the west side for several years and got to become very well acquainted with a lot of your night shift staff for the West Fargo Police Department. I've been impressed by your officers. They're proactive. They don't abide crime in this city, and they've always impressed me with their work ethic and a genuine care for each other. And I wanted to be a part of that effort. So I'm very proud to be here and appreciate the opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you, Officer Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Second, have Assistant Chief Nielsen come up. So this is a great night for our leadership team at the West Fargo Police Department. Very happy to say that effective Monday, November 15th, at the commission meeting when I made the announcement that we promoted Sergeant Pete Nielsen to the rank of Assistant Chief. We did have 5 outstanding internal candidates that went through a pretty rigorous process. We did some internal interviews, some presentations, some personality inventories that we put them through. So it was a pretty arduous process, and Pete Nielsen rose to the top as our #1 choice. So, and that was because of his experience, his commitment to the community, his high-quality character, his years of not only formal leadership but informal leadership on the police department. It just made him the best candidate for promotion. So, Assistant Chief Nielsen is a native of West Fargo. He served as a law enforcement specialist in the United States Air Force for 4 years. After working as a police officer with the North Dakota State University Police Department, Assistant Chief Nielsen started as a patrol officer with West Fargo PD in 1999. During his tenure with the department, he served as a first support services officer to manage officer training. He began the West Fargo Police Department volunteer program to engage community members to assist with day-to-day operations and implemented our Neighborhood Watch program. Most notably, Assistant Chief Nielsen created our West Fargo Police Department K-9 program in 2011, grew that program from 1 K-9 to a team of 3 currently, and I can tell you that the reputation of that program is known both locally, regionally, and nationally because of all the efforts of Assistant Chief Nielsen. Those police K-9s are valuable department assets to assist with tracking missing individuals, apprehending fleeing criminals, and locating illegal narcotics. So it is my pleasure tonight to ask his wife to come up and officially pin him as our Assistant Chief of Police, and then I'll give him a couple minutes to introduce himself to you. Congratulations, sir.
Well, I guess I was going to go a couple different ways to how I was going to introduce myself. I know most of the people on the board here, so I will keep it short and sweet for my introduction, but the chief did a really good job on kind of explaining. Like I said, I started my career here back in 1999, and what's ironic is that I was speaking at the Exchange Club meeting the other afternoon, and Chief Rasmussen was there, and he asked me if I knew what day I was getting sworn in officially it was, and I said, I guess I don't actually know the day. I know it's Monday, and he said it's December 6th, and I just kind of looked at him and said, okay, and he said, I hired you and you started December 6th of 1999. So kind of a full circle has happened since then, obviously. It's been my privilege to work for the city of West Fargo. I'm honored to take this position. I also am excited to work with the commission. It's been an interesting few weeks. I'm used to kind of being out on patrol and going from call to call, and my new position includes a lot of meetings. So there's a lot of change, but I'm excited. I'm ready to be part of the senior leadership within the department, and I'm ready to start. So thank you all for allowing me to be here. Thank you to my family for being here, and thank you for everybody else within the city that's allowed me this position. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. At this time, the commission would like to come down and shake both of you gentlemen's hands. And I would also like to acknowledge in the room this evening is former Chief of Police of the City of West Fargo, Arlen Rassman. Thank you for being here, Arlen. Leading the way, Commissioner Simmons is our Police and Fire Commissioner that handles those portfolios. So, Mark? Gentlemen, let's put you in the middle.
There we go. Perfect, thank you.
So anybody that's here for this portion of it, we're going to be adjourning to the police department for making copies. So we'll just head out the doors there.
To those family members that are here, I want to say thank you for sharing your significant others or your family members in the protection of the city of West Fargo. We're very grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioners.
I would ask that everybody be remaining to please silence your cell phones for the duration of the meeting, if you would, please. The meeting is back in order. First order of business is to approve the order of the agenda with the change that we've made of moving number 1 of the regular agenda up to right after the call to order.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Commissioner Olson, thank you for the motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Jurdovic, second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is to approve the minutes of November 15th, 2021. They have been distributed. They are on pages 3 through 5 through the packet and online.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. I have a motion. Is there a second by Commissioner George?
Yep, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 15th, 2021 as distributed. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number E is the building permits. They are on pages 6 through 7. They have been distributed, and they are in the packet and online. If there's any questions, I'll direct them to building inspections.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdovic. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits, pages 6 through 7 as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. We now move to the consent agenda. There are items A through F. They have been distributed starting on page 8 and ending on pages 131. They are in the packet and they have been distributed.
Mayor, I do
Commissioner
have a
Simmons.
question on item B on the consent approval. if I may just ask that question rather than pull it?
Sure,
Can I do that?
absolutely.
Thank you. This question is for Dustin, our city engineer. Dustin, on that right-of-way shutdown, I know in the past we've had problems. Exactly what are we approving here as far as season shutdown?
Absolutely. Good evening, Commissioners. So the authorization tonight is to shut down all non-emergency utility work in our right-of-way. So things like,
Okay, only in the right-of-way?
only in our right-of-way.
Okay,
Yep. Yep.
so it shouldn't affect,
Private builders, no residential, commercial building that's going on in private property. does
okay,
not affect that
good
at all.
enough.
It's
Thank
just
you,
our
Mayor. That's all. I
right-of-way
wanted to make
management.
sure.
Yep.
Thank you, Dustin.
The gentleman that was called to the podium is Mr. Dustin Scott, our city engineer for the city of West Fargo. Thank you, Dustin.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. It's been moved to approve the consent agenda,
Second?
second by Commissioner Simmons. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 2 of the regular agenda is the first reading and public hearing for zoning from an R1, 1 and 2 family dwelling district to a C light commercial district at 120 First Street. Ms. Sankey,
Thank you.
city planner for the city of West Fargo, pages 132 through 140.
Thank you, President Dardis and Commissioners. This application was received in order to allow for a body art studio and a conditional use permit to allow for an apartment above a commercial establishment. The applicant has submitted an application for rezoning the existing structure to light commercial and a conditional use permit to allow an apartment above a commercial establishment. In 2019, the dental clinic, which had been at this location since 1950, relocated to a different site. Medical and dental clinics are considered conditionally permitted uses in the R-1, 1 and 2 family dwelling district. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to operate a body art studio with hours of operation from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday by appointment only. The applicant is also proposing to continue to utilize the living quarters on the second floor. With the proposed zoning change, a conditional use permit would be required to allow an apartment above the commercial establishment. Parking for the business is required to be 1 space per 250 square feet of gross floor area, which would be 6 spaces, and 2 for the residential use. 4 parking spaces are provided within the garages, and additional parking is provided on a parking slab on the north side of the property and in front of the garages. Property owners within 350 feet and applicable agencies and departments were notified. A call was received asking for more information with no concerns. An email was received in support of the request, and a property owner to the west asked if there was adequate parking for the proposed use. The comprehensive plan encourages investing in older neighborhoods closer to the downtown area and an increased mix of uses through the rehabilitation of buildings and infrastructure being a priority. At their November 9th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning and the conditional use permit. This is a public hearing for the rezoning. The applicant is available to answer any questions, as am I.
Thank you, Ms. Sankey. Are there any questions? Planning and zoning? At this time, we will go out of the regular agenda and we'll go into the public hearing for the rezoning from a R-1, 1 and 2 family dwelling district to a C light commercial district at 120 First Street. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this agenda item? Sir, please. Step forward to the microphone. Yes, sir. If you'd introduce yourself and your address, please, for the record.
My name is Rich Callender, and I practice dentistry at the 120 address. Actually, you probably know me from that. Now I'm retired. The only thing I wanted to comment on was someone had complained about possibly lack of parking. And I just wanted to say that, I was there for 40 years, and we never, ever had a parking issue because people can park on the street and they can park on the avenue. And there's about 4 spots, on the property, but parking was never an issue, ever. I never, ever heard one person complain. So that's all I really had to say, is that the parking issue really doesn't exist because I was there for 40 years and no one ever complained. So that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Callender, and we were pleased to have you in our city as a businessman and a physician.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions of the gentleman? All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this issue? Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this issue? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. We are back on the regular agenda. Commissioners, your thoughts?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of rezoning from an R1, 1 and 2 family dwelling district to C light commercial district at 121st Street. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3 on the irregular agenda is the first reading and a public hearing regarding a zoning ordinance amendments to Section 4-200, definitions 4-440, and supplementary district regulations, and 4-442-6, accessory building and use provisions regarding swimming pools. Mr. Peterson, City Planner for the City of West Fargo.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President and Commissioners. Staff is proposing minor zoning ordinance changes related to privately owned swimming pools within the City of West Fargo. These amendments would do the following. One, they would add definitions for temporary pools and permanent pools, with sort of the defining factor being that a temporary pool would be anything that would contain less than 5,000 gallons or have a depth of less than 2.5 feet. These definitions, these ordinance amendments would also clearly define what constitutes as an adequate barrier. So it wouldn't allow for any sort of like soft barrier or some of those hard coverings which are electronically closed, something that somebody has to remember to kind of hit and press to close. These ordinance amendments would also clarify what is considered an acceptable height for locking mechanisms for gates and other barrier openings. And then they would also require that any permanent pool built after the new year would need to be permitted by the City of West Fargo Building Inspections Department and reviewed by the West Fargo Planning and Zoning Department. Notices were placed in the newspaper for this hearing, and appropriate city departments were notified. Planning staff worked with staff members from building inspections, code enforcement, and emergency management to come up with the proposed amendments, which are outlined in your packets. At the November 9th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the ordinance amendments. This is a public hearing, and I'm here to answer any questions and take any comments that you or the public might have.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Questions for Mr. Peterson? Please.
Some questions, but they can wait to maybe after the public.
Go ahead.
Okay, just real quick. I always get cautious when we talk about changing ordinances and amending them and making new ones and so forth. And I'm curious what brought this specific one on? What was the cause for this?
Sure. So we received a question, I believe it was from Commissioner Jurdevig on pool
Oh, okay, I didn't.
pool permitting.
Well, he's the one with the pool, so, I mean, yeah, okay, keep going, I'm sorry.
Yep, and that kicked off a discussion among staff. So previously, the City of West Fargo had issued permits for private pools in the past, but then that was done away with, and then we've sort of just didn't do pool permitting before, and then we got a new building inspections administrator, and then we decided maybe we should permit pools then, just so planning and zoning is looking as far as total lot coverage, surface area, that sort of thing, making sure that there's barriers. Technically under city ordinance, you're supposed to have some sort of barrier around to keep children from coming into your pool and drowning in it. However, the ordinance isn't super specific when it comes to what is defined as barriers. So we've had people in the past call both myself and then Travis in code enforcement asking whether or not, if having a soft sort of pool covering counts as a barrier. We've also had people who have pools on their decks who are like, if I basically fence off the stairway to my deck, can I then get away with having my pool without having to have a fence around my yard? And then other people have questions relating to temporary pools, like those kiddie pools that you buy at Walmart. And so we just thought that the ordinance was sort of vague when it came to some of these definitions, and that's kind of why you're seeing the amendments that you're seeing tonight.
And there are examples, actually. I mean, there's a pool that has been built in West Fargo way too close to the river. Because we didn't require a permit, we had no knowledge that it was being built until it was already there.
Okay, so we're going to require, obviously, fences and so forth here, correct?
Correct. You don't necessarily need a fence, but it's one of the barrier
Okay,
types.
so my next question, and I thought, wasn't sure if I heard you say, what about all the people that have them now? Pools, then, I mean, are they grandfathered in? Is that what I?
Correct, yeah.
So
we went
everybody
and
with
looked
it
at
now would
any.
be great. It'd just be Commissioner Jurgovec and people moving forward that would have to do this.
Correct.
Okay,
My pool's there, what are you talking about?
okay. No, I know. I was just, okay, that's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Jurdovic, please.
I guess I'll ask my question. So first off, in the page up front, it says that we're decreasing it from 6 feet to 5 feet, the requirement on the fence, but that isn't actually reflected in the edits in the document.
That was my question, too.
So I think that's just a clarification, whether it's 5 feet or 6 feet, but if we're intending to change it to 5, then the document has not been updated properly.
I apologize for that. So the correct number is 6 feet. We had talked about decreasing it to 5 feet, but then we ended up just keeping it the same at 6 feet, but I did not make that change within the staff report, so I apologize for that.
So my other question is actually just more out of curiosity, you know, as has come out, I have a pool in my backyard. It does have an automatic cover. It's completely lockable. I mean, I can walk across my pool cover. It creates a way safer environment than my fence does. So I'm not arguing against the fence requirement. I have one, just to be clear. But why isn't that those types of covers that are completely lockable and, you know, designed to be a safety feature, why aren't those acceptable?
So the answer for that is after talking with Mark from Building Inspections. So in the past, all previous barriers like gate openings and things like that for fences have needed to have like a self-latching mechanism. So if you forget to latch your barrier, it'll latch itself. The same thing goes for like gate openings for like if you have a pool on a deck, so that kids can't get up to the deck. The main reason why we put the part about the electronic hard surface electronic covering in there for was that people can forget to, I guess, press the button to close the pool. And so we did have some discussion about that, though, whether or not that should constitute as an adequate barrier.
Because I have more confidence in that cover than I do in a kid not just opening up my gate into my fence and walking in my backyard. I know they can't open the cover without a key and other things. So anyways, I was just curious.
Additional questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
On page 159 of the packet, item 6A, it says that all barriers must be 6 feet in height, and then in the, halfway down in that paragraph, it says all gates and doors to these permanent pools should be at least 54 inches from the finished grade, so that's not 5 feet, or 6 feet. So, do we need to change that?
Correct. So, I suppose, so with the International Building Code, one of the recommendations within that code, in my discussions with Mark from Building Inspections, was that a self-latching mechanism or the opening mechanism should be 54 inches from whatever the grade is. And so that was what sort of led to that discussion that Commissioner Jurdovic, or maybe it was Commissioner Simmons, talked about why we had 6 feet lowered to 5 feet. And that was why we figured if the mechanism's at 5 feet, maybe it should just be at 5 feet then. But then with discussion with Pierre from Emergency Management, he suggested that we keep it at 6 feet just to add another foot so kids can't, I guess, try to climb it more. It's more of a difficult barrier, I suppose, to keep somebody out of the pool than having them try to reach up and over and then unlatch that latch.
It's just confusing to me whether it's 6 feet or 54 inches of the door. Why isn't the door having to be the same height as the actual fence? So we're telling them that the fence has to be 6 feet, but the door can be 54 inches.
And we can always make it so it's more than that as well. Yeah.
Part of that probably is because the door can't touch the ground as well, correct? I mean, you gotta be able to open it, so you're gonna have to have some space on the bottom and a little on the top. And
Swing space.
when you add them up, they probably come to a few inch, 6, 7 inches.
If I was building it, I'd build it all the same height, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just confusing.
Commissioner George?
Just a quick question. When the definition of a permanent swimming pool has changed, and so all these barriers are in regards to permanent pools, right? But I see that the change here, it went from 1,000 gallons to 5,000 gallons. So where does that change come from?
So that change was due to the fact that there's some whirlpools or jacuzzis that are over that 1,000 gallon, I guess, marker, but they're
Like
less
an
than
endless
five.
pool or something?
Exactly, yeah, but
So
yet,
why 5,000 and not 4,000? Or like, where does the number come from then? I mean, is it just a number out of the thin air, or is there some sort of data that at 5,000 feet it becomes more of a risk, or?
the 5,000 gallon, I can check into that. So the 5,000 gallon requirement or definition, that came from another city's definition on permanent or temporary pools. I'm not sure if that was taken from one of the metro cities or another city within West Fargo. I'd have to go back and look at the email chain to see where that came from.
Okay, I'm just wondering, so we're not just randomly picking if there's a 4,000 gallon pool that we need, I mean, I just, you know what I mean? So,
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Peterson. We are going out of the regular agenda and going into a public hearing regarding the zoning ordinance amendments to section 4-200, 4-440, and 4-442. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak to these items? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to these items? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak to these items? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Commissioners?
I just have one more question, Mayor. If maybe
Please,
someone could-
Commissioner
yeah,
Simmons.
Sorry, what is the fee? Obviously, has to be a fee to do this, so what is the fee for this?
Correct. And so we were still going to discuss that amongst city staff on what the fee should be, if it should be related to, should just be a flat fee, or if it should be related to the size of pool that was being permitted. And one of the ideas was just to have a flat, like $100 permit fee for it. And it would be, in sort of a discussion around that was it would just be easier just to come up with that, because we're not physically having a building inspector go out to somebody's
Measure,
yard if they're
yeah.
doing that. And it only takes, 15 minutes to look at it or less for both building inspections and planning and zoning. So we didn't feel that it was necessarily a large fee should be associated with something like that.
Okay.
So the changes that we're suggesting, or the changes you're going to make with regard to 6 foot or 54 inches where the latch is and all of that, we've already published this as a public hearing and as the first reading. Can we make those changes, Sarah, by the second reading?
Yes, since you've had the public hearing, we're still talking about the same ordinances, so you can make those changes and any other ones between first and second reading up till
So,
reading.
thank you. So then you'll come back with Commissioner George's question and Commissioner Olson's questions about heights and all that on the next one, all right?
Yep, correct.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Jurdevig moves. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading and the public hearing of zoning ordinance amendments to section 4-200, 4-440, and 4-442.6. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Item number 4 is the appeal of the planning and zoning recommendation regarding a plat and conditional use permit for a non-farm, single-family dwelling in an agriculturally zoned district. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President, Commissioners. The application, which was recommended for denial by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their November 9th, 2021 meeting, concerns a property located in the extraterritorial area about a half mile to the west of West Fargo city limits. The applicant is proposing to build a non-farm single-family home on property that is within the agricultural district. The property is located west of the future Fargo Moorhead flood diversion and is about 9 acres in size, with an additional 31 acres that would need to be deed restricted to prevent further development should the application be approved. Overall, the applicant owns about 144 acres of land in this area. The Planning and Zoning Commission denied the application based on 2 main criteria. One, that there does not appear to be adequate access to the property in the event of a 100-year flood event, and that the property is 2, within the city's deferred development sector, which is an area labeled by the city's comprehensive plan as being a location where development is recommended to not take place until the diversion is operational and a revised floodplain map has been made available. After the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, city staff contacted the Cass County engineer about the 100-year flood event issue, and we received comments from him that while there is no access to the east of the property, there would still be access via the west and to the north. His comments and then flood imagery from the 2011 flood are included in your packets. As for the deferred development sector issue, previous projects such as this one have been approved in the sector before, including the Brooks subdivision, which was approved earlier this year by both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Commission. The only difference between this application and the Brooks application was that the property, in this case, would still be outside of the FM diversion's protection once the diversion is complete and operational. Staff has no recommendation for or against the project, but would like to note that denial of this application, it would certainly be different than sort of what has been done in the past with the 2 previous ones, both that being the Brooks subdivision, which was earlier this year, and then also the JB subdivision, which was back in 2018. If the City Commission chooses to overturn the recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission and approve the application, staff would like the Commission to approve with the recommendations provided within the staff report. The applicant is here tonight and would like to say a few words, and then I'm also here for any questions that you might have.
So I have one question. So the county engineer's analysis of access points from the north and the west, I believe you said, was that report ready for the Planning and Zoning Commission, or did that come after the fact?
That came after the fact. So we sent out a notice to applicable agencies and departments, including the Cass County Engineer's Office, and we didn't receive any comments back of that related to any concerns or anything like that. But the Planning and Zoning Commission, they were just a little bit weary about it because it didn't specifically state the access question.
So before we ask the applicant to come forward, all of the criteria and the granting conditions have been explained to these folks?
Correct.
In
Yep.
detail? Very good. Okay. Anybody else have any questions of Mr. Peterson? All right. We'll hear from the applicants. You'd like to come forward, please? Applicant, excuse me.
Hello.
Please state your name and address.
Steve Selberg. And what I'd like to say today is I just wanted to reiterate the fact that that information was not provided at the time of last month's meeting. And we went through Moore Engineering and Olmsted, and they've done all their due diligence and as far as all the work. And like as Malachi had mentioned, you know, we have that 144 acres out there. That section that we have there in the blue box rectangle is about 9.3 acres, and that's where we'd like. There is 2 residents to the west and 2 residents to the east as well, and they've been there for quite a while. And I'm a native of Fargo. I've been here. I was born here in 1964 and been through all the floods and things of that nature. So, you know, I'm not a transient and just trying to get your approval here. I mean, you know, I really would like to build a nice home. I work for the VA, and I've worked there for many years serving the veterans in radiology. And so I just wanted to come here and...
And you have reviewed the conditions?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, yeah.
And one of the items is listed here is the property is about 9 acres, this parcel?
Yes, yes.
The surrounding 31 acres of land will need to be deed restricted to prevent further development? You
Yep, and that's
understand that,
common.
that you'll have to come forward again if there's any movement on any of that?
because, yeah.
Okay. Commissioners, questions of the gentleman? Mr. Selbert?
Is the FM, oh, I'm sorry.
No?
Thank you, Mayor. Is the FM diversion going to affect your land at all?
Not that I'm aware of. Because where they took the house out, that's about 3/4 of a mile to the west.
Right, so,
And that's where they're going. And so, like I said, there's 2 residents to the west and 2 residents to the east. And,
but if they, I guess if for some reason they did divert, that would be between you and them anyway, correct? The city would have nothing to do with
right,
that.
I mean, that
So
would
we're
be
not
my
putting ourselves at
understanding.
Risk, I guess, Sarah, is what
There
I'm
can
saying.
be no more changes to the route.
Yeah, well, let's hope
It's,
so.
that's in concrete.
Let's
Yeah,
hope so.
And if John Shockley was here, he'd have thrown a pen at anybody that would suggest that.
Odder things have happened over the years, Mayor, so, okay.
That's
thank
not going to happen. I'm on the Diversion Board Authority.
Oh, okay.
So, Commissioner Jordan.
I have one question for Dustin, actually. Dustin, is there any issue with the fact that the proposed house will pretty much sit on a quarter line? I mean, just in terms of I know our major roads tend to be on section lines, but I found it just slightly odd that kind of how this lies crossing 2 different quarters of land, and that the actual house is pretty much on.
Mr. Dustin Scott, please, City Engineer, City of West Fargo.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yes, Commissioner Jurdevig, that if this were a developing area, we would certainly be concerned with that. Being the location is in our extraterritorial, it's outside of the FM diversion area. That we have no foreseeable master plan in this area for extending city infrastructure there. But yes, you're correct. Typically, we would like to reserve a section line and half-section lines for our collector roadways and arterial roadways. But we have had cases even in town here where we've had to deviate from that and, S-curve away. But if this were in city limits, we'd certainly bring that issue forward. But again, with this proximity outside the city limits, I'd say it's not something we're concerned with at this point.
Just for a point of clarification.
Please, Commissioner Olson.
The planned diversion is on which side of this
I was
lot?
just looking on Google Maps to see that,
Yeah.
because
Is it on the east side or west side?
West side.
It's west of here, west of this.
No, the
East
proposed
of-
diversion
east
is
of this.
east of
East,
this.
okay, so
This
it's
is just on the west side.
That's
of
what I
it.
was confused.
Yeah, I was confused in that same point.
Okay. So it won't be protected by the diversion.
Correct.
But that is why you'll have to build it up, obviously.
Exactly, yep.
Additional questions from Mr. Scott? Thank you, sir. Commissioners?
I just have a
Commissioner
comment.
George, I'm sorry.
No, I just have a comment. No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's west of the diversion, so chances are we're not going to develop too much outside of the FM diversion when it goes in. It's his land. If he's willing to do the recommendations, I would support him doing it. So that's my opinion. So I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Commissioner Simmons, seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the appeal of a recommendation regarding the plot and conditional use permit for a non-farm, single-family dwelling in an agriculturally zoned district. I neglected to mention these are on pages 161 to 174 in the packet.
And Mayor, I do believe, yeah, I'm sorry, but there were also the conditions, and I think, Maliki, you said the staff wanted something else in there as well?
Just that if you do approve it, that you approve it with the staff recommendations listed within the staff report.
Commissioner George?
Yep, with the staff recommendations, agreed.
With the staff conditions as included in the original motion. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Subbard, you have a permit. Thank you. Item 5 is the final approval of a conditional use permit for a 160-foot telecommunications tower located in an agriculturally zoned district. Mr. Peterson. City Planner. Is it on pages 175 to 208?
Thank you, Mr. Commission President and Commissioners. The applicant is proposing to build a new 160-foot monopole telecommunications tower located on property leased from the Cass County Joint Water Resource District. This tower would replace a telecommunications tower of the same height, which needs to be torn down because of the proposed Fargo Moorhead flood diversion project. The agricultural district allows for telecommunications towers as a conditional use. Property owners within 350 feet were notified, as well as applicable agencies and departments, and no comments were received. At their October 12, 2021 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval of the application with staff recommendations listed in the staff report. Concerning the placement of the tower, the Planning and Zoning Commission directed Qualtech Wireless to move the project as close to the proposed FM diversion as possible. Qualtech Wireless has submitted a revised site plan included in your packets, which meets this requirement. Staff is recommending final approval of the conditional use permit tonight. This is not a public meeting or a public hearing, and both myself and the applicant are here in case you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Commissioners, are there questions? Commissioner George?
The comment, whenever I see a tower, I always think about the airport, but I believe this is far enough south away where it shouldn't be any issues. So.
Yep, the applicant has received the proper FAA and FCC documents and regulations for it.
Great, thank you.
Additional questions of Mr. Peterson? Commissioner Olson?
So there's an existing tower basically on the other side of the road at that farmstead.
Correct.
And we're gonna, because of the alignment of the FM diversion, it's got to be moved just a little bit further east to our existing diversion.
Yep, correct. That's actually former Planning and Zoning Commission Chair Tom McDougall's property, I believe.
Yeah, Tom has relocated his farm to Mapleton, I think is the address now. It was bought out by the diversion.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your pleasure, Commissioners?
Make a motion to final approval?
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve final approval of a conditional use permit for a 160-foot telecommunications tower located on an agriculturally zoned district, as presented this evening. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Item number 6 is an application for abatement or refund of taxes for Charleswood Commercial Estates LLC for 2019 and 2020. This is in your packet, is in pages 209 to 242. Mr. Nick Lee, City Assessor, City of West Fargo.
Good evening, Commissioners. Today you meet to hear the abatement application for the properties at 740, 752, 837, 833, and 823 Breton Drive East, West Fargo for the years 2019 and 2020. The information was submitted to you ahead of time. We ask that you just hear any testimony that they might want to give you and ask any questions that you may have. So.
Questions for Mr. Lee? Commissioner Simmons, please.
Thank you. I kind of have one right away. This is rather unusual, isn't it, that we're hearing this tonight? Doesn't this come during a normal process when we do?
An abatement application can be submitted at any time after the taxes have been locked in. So as you'll notice, we're doing 19 and 20. This was done at the last, or this was submitted a few weeks ago. And they can do 2021 now after, well, I guess 2021 is on the table now too, but only application so far for 19 and 20.
So this is different than what we normally do?
Yep, this is
on a
outside
Tuesday
the
okay.
Board of Equalization local counties.
I guess I don't recall one ever coming in front of us like this before.
Well, we actually did this on these same properties for 2018 last year.
We did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess first, if the applicant's here, I'm not aware, but if they like to give any testimony to add on to what they gave you before the meeting, I would suggest you do that first.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. The gentleman in the back did raise his hand. We'll acknowledge him, please. Step forward, state your name and address. Speak directly into the microphone, please.
Yes, my name is Sanjay Patel, and thank you, commissioners, for hearing this today. Basically, yes, I did apply for 2018 abatement, and I could not be here at the time to give my testimony. My name is Sanjay Patel. I live in Fargo, North Dakota. Address is 16 South 16th Street, Fargo 58103. So this was never challenged before by us prior to 2018. We have owned this property since 2014. And the only thing caught our eyes is that somewhere in that 2015 area, the property values jumped quite a bit in 1 year. And we could not figure out why that was the case. So back in 18, when we noticed this for this purpose, we had applied for the abatement application based on the state regulations and state law. We are planning a large establishment in West Fargo as our main office or the corporate office for my businesses. And we have also have another site in Fargo, North Dakota side, which is for the same reason. I did discuss this project with your economic development team a while ago. COVID really slowed it down, but that was just prior to that. And the property we are planning in this particular property, one of the lots in this, I don't have the map here in front of you, but basically there will be several lots used for this proposed property, but the hindrance is the property tax. We are, as the value goes, it's going to be about $30 million establishment in that location. And that's where all my businesses will move to as a headquarter in West Fargo. Right now we are in Fargo. So we'd like to have some consideration for this, at least investigation, what happened in 2015 that really brought the values much higher than, and then forward thereon to its increases from year after year. Increases do happen. I'm a businessman. I recognize cost of living goes up, everything goes up. However, there was an unusual activity. So we like this to be considered in front of the commission whenever it can be. It doesn't have to be today. I didn't know it was this fast. So that's it.
Questions of the gentleman? Have you sat down with Mr. Lee to discuss the increase in property values of 2018?
I did, I think, have one discussion with you, I recall.
We had a phone call.
Phone call, yeah, that's it, yeah. But I have not formally sat down to go through the process. This is the new for me too. It's not like something I do on a regular basis, so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lee?
Yep.
Thank you.
As some of you might remember, those were the years we were doing a major revaluation of the city. So most of the commercial land in town jumped up quite significantly that year.
Nick,
Mr. Simmons.
as I'm reading this and I was listening, we have had discussions with this before, have we not?
The 2018.
This is the,
It is,
yeah, okay, so
right.
it's just kind of coming back. I'm remembering now that
And these parcels are TIF'd too, so there has been some consideration for that kind of stuff on this corner. All of them are TIF'd. And
So, excuse me for interrupting, but there's 5 parcels, 5 lots? Is
Yep.
that correct? Okay. All right.
And the other thing, just to note, I didn't know how to do something there. Okay. We're only concerned with the value of the property, and that is going to be based on prior sales, comparable sales. As far as taxes are concerned, we don't really get into that, so I can't help them on that, so.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Simmons.
Yeah, Nick, I'm looking at the sales at $241 a square foot, and you're saying it's considerably lower than all the other sales in the area, so it doesn't seem out of whack. As I'm looking at this, it seems like we're in order where we're at. Is that what you're telling us? That you
Yeah,
think everything is?
our recommendation is to deny both years. We feel that we're right in range, but this meeting is to hear his side and see what he has to say. So,
Additional questions of the gentleman or Mr. Lee? Okay.
Some comments, or?
Please.
You want to know?
Anything, discussion?
Yeah, we need to have some discussion comments. I guess as I'm looking at this, I think that we're well within our parameters. I don't feel that we've got enough evidence to prove that it's different, that we should lower it. Once we start that process, as well. I mean, I remember this part of this project or this land from before. If the other properties around there are selling at that same, rate, then we're right in line. I mean, unfortunately, we can't dictate what happened in, 2018, 17 as far as the economy and what happened with even now going forward with COVID-19 in 2020. We're going to have some of these concerns as well, I believe, coming forward. So I would make the motion that we deny this if there are no other questions.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdovic seconds. It's been moved and seconded to deny the application for abatement or refund of taxes for Charleswood Commercial Estates LLC for 2019 and 2020 as presented by Mr. Nick Lee on pages 209 to 242 of our packet. Is there any further discussion? All right, proceed to vote. Again, we are voting to deny the application. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7 is a grant acceptance by Mr. Dustin Scott, City Engineer, City of West Fargo. It is in pages 243 to 261. It's the accepted grant applications and author a letter of support. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and members of the commission. Well, 'tis the season for grant applications. Last year, we had a few projects we submitted for, and we were successful in getting a grant for a couple of them. And this year, we prepared 4 applications. They're listed in your packet there. There's basically 3 different programs that we are applying into. One is the Highway Safety Improvement Plan, or program. The other is the Transportation Alternatives. And then the third is the Urban Road Program. The 4 applications are due at the end of this month to the DOT for their consideration. If the city receives a grant, we would bring that forward before there's any action taken further. So sending in the applications does not commit the city to anything at this point, but we are asking to apply for these particular projects. And of course, we would then add them to our capital improvement plan. So with that, I guess I would answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions for Mr. Scott? All right. Seems there's no questions. What's your pleasure, Commissioner?
Make the motion to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve the application of grant applications. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to file the grant applications and authorize a letter of support. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8 is a letter to formally request for the city of Fargo by Dustin Scott, city engineer. Page 262, to authorize the engineering to prepare and send a letter of formal request to the city of Fargo for adding a traffic signal at the intersection of Veterans Boulevard and 37th Avenue East. Mr. Scott.
Thank you again, Commissioner President Dardis and commissioners. So the intersection at 37th Avenue is where the primary entrance in and out of the Cheyenne High School is. Of course, traffic has significantly increased in the recent years, where development on both sides of West Fargo and Fargo have certainly spurred and generated not only additional traffic, but again, just an overwhelming need to put in a traffic signal at this location. We've had a couple meetings with the city of Fargo. They are best suited to take the lead on a project like this. They've got the capabilities to do this in-house. That would certainly save us some costs in trying to hire a consultant to do that. We would start by entering into a memorandum of understanding where we would work out details such as the cost share and all the other good legal items that ONSTED would help us out with. But at this point, what I'm asking for is the authorization to not only add this to our capital improvement plan, but then send a formal letter of request to the city of Fargo to not only support this project, but again, take the lead in the administration, the design and construction of it. So with that, I would answer any questions.
Am I to understand, Mr. Scott, that on Veterans Boulevard, the city of Fargo and the city of West Fargo have worked on another traffic signals?
Correct, yes. Yeah, we coordinated two other traffic signals.
Standard operating when one side's one city and one side's the other.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Scott? Okay. Commissioners?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Jurdovic seconds. We have a motion and a second to send a letter of formal request to the city of Fargo to authorize engineering to prepare or send a letter, a formal request to the city of Fargo for a traffic signal at the intersection of Veterans Boulevard and 37th Avenue East. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 9, commission approval of a COLA transfer of funds for the West Fargo Public Library, pages 263 and 264 of our packet. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, thank you. So a quick summary.
Please state your name.
Oh, sorry.
And
I am not used to being here. My name is Maria Kramer. I am the Deputy Director for the West Fargo Public Library. So at the November 1st, 2021 City Commission meeting, the Commission approved a 4% cost of living adjustment for City of West Fargo employees in 2022, up from 1% as originally approved. The Library Board is now requesting a transfer of funds from city general funds or other sources to cover that increase for library staff due to the library's mill reduction and subsequent depletion of its cash reserves in recent years. The Library Board asks the Commission to support this request. It is crucial for equitable pay between library staff and other staff of the city, and it supports our employees as inflation continues to rise. Our staff are the library's greatest asset. They're the reason for all the successes that we have had come from them and their efforts. And they make the services we provide in accordance with our strategic plan possible, the way the library enriches the city. So some numeric details. The total transfer requested is $35,811. Are there any questions?
questions for the lady?
Mayor?
Commissioner Simmons, please.
Thank you. So I guess I'm a little confused. When you say library mill reduction, we just gave you 1.2 mills to help catch up.
Yes.
And it sounds like you've done very good financially with that. And so I guess I'm just wondering, because I watched your last library meeting, And Carissa said to you that when you asked her, did you have funding for 2021, she said, yes, we do. And then she said, we actually have funding for 2022 because of her position. And so the funding obviously is there that you already have on your own. And your president, when she was asked the question, it was, I won't go verbatim, but it was basically, well, let's first go to the commission and see if we can get some money from them. That's somewhat insulting.
I was
to
not
the
at that
commission.
meeting. I can't speak to.
Commissioner George was, I'm sure she can, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
it might have been Leanne Hansen.
pardon?
That might have been Leanne instead of Maria that you're thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, it was kind of insulting as a commission to sit up here and hear you guys say, well, we've got the money, but let's go see if we can get it first before we approve anything.
I think it's not that it's that they're going to be really low on their funds and they're concerned about that, which is why they're coming to commission to ask for it. I mean, can they cover it? Yes, but they're just going to be very low, and that's the concern.
And Chris also mentioned that there was money next year in 2022 as well in there, Commissioner George, in that funding. So it's like, I mean, I definitely agree. Your people need the COLA. There's no question about that. My question is, why should we take it out of our general fund when you're admitting that you have the funds at the library?
Can I ask you a clarifying question?
Sure.
Commissioner Simmons? So, I didn't listen to it, so did they say that because they have positions they have not yet filled? Is that where the money they're saying is coming from?
Do you want to respond to that?
So somebody else got to respond? I don't know.
Please, Tina Fisk, City Administrator, City of West Fargo.
Thank you. Excuse me. I had a conversation with Carissa a few weeks back, and we went over their fund balances and her budget today to see how the library was coming in. And they're coming in with their expenditures significantly under budget for 2021. And so when we talked about it, I let her know that the concern you had on your ending fund balance of 2021 isn't going to be a concern anymore because you're going to have excess funds there because you didn't expend all your money. Now, I didn't look exactly where that came from. I'm sure it came from a variety of places, but that was the information that I gave her at the time.
Yeah, the library, the way that the library functions with its mill levies, the administration of the library can authorize the additional raises of the COLA that we approved?
Yes, they can. The
As long
library.
as they're within their budget.
The library board has total financial responsibility to manage the library. For example, last year they made some department changes or job description changes that ended up increasing the cost of staffing, but they voted, which is fine, they voted in favor of doing it because they can utilize their funds the way they choose to. We don't have any say over their funds. Once we pass the mill levy, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Mr. Simmons.
I'll clarify a little bit on the meeting. And, you know, Commissioner George, you were there, obviously, so, but what the context of it was basically is we will go to the city commission to see if we can get more money, but we're going to give it to them anyway. We're just going to wait until after this. So they're going to get it regardless. My concern, if they're going to get it, give it to them, and next year we'll worry about funding more portions of the library. I don't think we need to dip into our general fund this year. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
They're just concerned about reducing the reserves too far if they have to take it out of their reserves versus out of the city reserves. So, right, they're getting it either way. It's just where's the money coming from?
Right. And we have to take it out of our reserves as well, so.
Right, so do you want to take it out of the library reserves or the city reserves? That's up to you how you want to vote.
Just a quick note, as was in this document, the estimated end-of-year 2021 library cash balance after the draw to cover the 2021 deficit, which was $145,000, is estimated to be $150,000 to $250,000. And the COLA increase requested is $35,000 approximately. So that's a not insignificant portion of that reserve fund.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioner George, again, in that meeting, they also talked, and I'm not sure if that's built into this, but about changing some of the position and raising the salaries on some of those. Is that part of this, or is that?
I can't say for sure.
Because I know that was another portion that was going to be added into this, and I think Chris had just put it all into.
The increase, so I believe that you're speaking about position changes to our library assistant description. That increase is not included here.
Pardon?
That increase is not included
Is not
in this
in-
amount.
okay.
Additional questions?
One
Commissioner
question
Commissioner
for,
Olson.
So when there's a balance left over from one budget year, does that automatically carry over into the next budget year?
The library controls all their funds, so that does carry over. They keep their cash within there, and their board can determine how they want to use it, whether they want to. So when changes come forward, whether it's, excuse me, whether it's personnel or other purchase options, they get to choose if they want to exceed their budget or not.
That is, but it's important to note, in our first few years as a commissioner, we helped balance the city budget by forcing the library to spend on mills. That's how we didn't do a mill increase in those first couple of years, because when we started, their reserves was something in excess of $1 million. And we made them spend those reserves down by cutting their mill rate for a number of years.
We could go over that, Commissioner.
But that's
Durgan,
factual.
But that's your facts,
You
that's
can
not
treat-
my facts.
No, there's one version of facts, that is the facts.
The facts is they had money they should never have
asked-
had.
I was
That's the
specifically
fact, so-
asked as the library commissioner by our city administrator to support that on the city's behalf in a conversation with Tina. So I absolutely know that that is exactly what the city did. So you can try to twist that to be something different, but that's you making it up.
Okay, I'm not twisting anything here. I'm just trying to, and I don't want to put somebody else on the spot. But from what my understanding was that the library, and again, I have nothing against the library, that's fine. But they were saving money with a building fund they were not supposed to do. Is that correct? Is it illegal to do it? And they were doing it. That's yes or no. That's a simple one. Don't try to twist them out.
I'm not sure of the answer to that, but is the library legally not required or not allowed to have a reserve fund?
Mrs. Fisk, can you answer
have
that
one.
question?
The library is able to carry reserve balances over. I think the concern at the time for Commissioner Simmons was here when the first time this happened was that the director at the time said that she was trying to create a balance so that she could put it away for a building. So it wasn't necessarily a fiscally responsible budget that was creating that balance, and that's where the commission got upset.
To be perfectly clear, the commission does decide on the mill levy amount that the library is going to get. The commission does not decide how that library, how it functions and the fact of how it does its expenditures. So we are responsible. We have passed the 2022 budget with the mill levy that we deemed appropriate and that the library director brought forward as to what their request was. So, it's just so everybody understands, we do control the amount of mills that the library gets. We do not control how that money is spent, as long as they're in budget.
And that's per century code, not just a West Fargo rule, right? That's per century code.
Right. The last thing
Legal counsel says that is correct.
The last thing I'll say is that we approved their mill rate and their budget with a 1% COLA, when I think there was wide understanding that there was going to be further action taken. So we limited their mill rate by approving it when we knew that a COLA adjustment was going to be happening shortly thereafter. So we kind of trapped them.
But they have the funds, though. That's just it. They have the funds.
And I think that's a valid point, and I think if the commission wants to take a wait-and-see approach to see how the budget plays out with, that might be a viable.
I would be more than happy to go on record to say that I would support this if down the road they don't have enough money. If we come to 2022 and they need that COLA or something, then yeah, absolutely. But at this point, they have the funding, and they've said they have the funding. So,
Mrs. Fisk.
I just wanted to clarify, because I'm not exactly sure where the numbers were all created from, but I had our finance director do a look at the library after I had talked to the director, Chris, at that time. And the updated projection for an ending balance for 2021 is $295,266. So the net change would be going down $13,300. With that in mind, he took the 2022 budget, the original approved, and then if the COLA is taken out of there, with the COLA coming, if the COLA came out of there, it would be, their balance would go down to $251,468 because their budget only has a just under $8,000 deficit with the mills that they were given right now. So there won't be a huge drop. Just so that you know when you're making your decision, there's not a huge drop anticipated. There's not a big draw of funds. I understand they're concerned on their balance, but I just wanted to make sure you had those facts.
Thank you. Additional questions?
I would make a motion that we deny the COLA, and then obviously with just ourselves look at it, if we need to do it again. If they need the money in 2022, we'll provide that, but for now, I feel they have it, so.
Deny the COLA?
Deny, no, not the
Increase.
deny the increase, yeah, and then,
Transfer of fund.
yes, deny the transfer of funds.
Support the COLA increase,
Yeah,
but
but deny the, yeah, absolutely, yes,
Okay.
absolutely, you're right, sorry.
I have a motion on the floor to deny the transfer, but to support the COLA increase of $35,811 for the library. Is there a second? Is there a second? For the purpose of more discussion, I'll second the motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Simmons, and we have a second by Dardis to deny the COLA increase. Is there additional discussion?
The transfer.
Transfer, excuse me. Thank you, Commissioner Olson.
Again, I'll go on record that if they need this money in 2022, I would support it. But I just feel now they have the funding, and we don't need to dip into our general reserve funds at this point. We've done that enough.
And I certainly support that. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye to deny the transfer. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes on a 3-2 vote. The transfer is denied. Item number 10 is the city administrator's report. Mrs. Fisk.
Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. I have just a couple quick items. Well, actually, I have three. But first of all, I want to give you an update. Matt Anvig, the Public Works Director, was not able to be here tonight. He had a Christmas concert for his kids. And so he asked me to share with you the update on snow removal. He said the crews came in and worked the weekend. The whole town has been plowed, and they are now starting to haul the snow from the cul-de-sacs. They will continue to clean up the rest of this week. Most of the downtown area was hauled away with only a little left to take out. They did a good job of cleaning out the downtown area and sidewalks. So they wanted you to be aware of that, and I must say, our city does look good. They do a great job. The second thing that I want to bring up is we have here today Aaron Nelson. He is our new Director of Planning and Zoning, and I wanted to give him the opportunity to come up and say hello to those of you that have not met him yet.
Good evening. Welcome, Mr. Nelson.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I guess first and foremost, I just want to introduce myself again. My name is Aaron Nelson. Extremely happy to be here. Prior to coming on board here with the City of West Fargo, I worked for the City of Fargo for the better part of 8.5 years, and I've had a lot of opportunities to work with your staff over those years, and you guys have a great team, and I'm super excited to be able to join them here. So happy to be here, happy to stick around after the meeting as well, should you have any additional questions for me.
Thank you, and congratulations on your new position.
Congratulations.
Okay, the final item I have here for you was one that we've been working on as staff. And because it involves changing our number of meeting rooms to accommodate this, I was asked to bring it forward to commission for approval. We've been looking at some of the safety issues and space issues with clerk of court and access. The judge has to walk through all the defendants. Well, it's a whole lot of stuff. But anyway, so we were looking at taking the clerk of court's office, which is all the way down where the old utility building used to be across from finance, and moving that into the West Fargo room so that people didn't have to wander all the way down there and back, because court is right here. In order to do that, they would have to take out a panel of glass and put in an actual reception window. And, let me see, reception window, they would have to cut a doorway in the wall to allow the judge safer access into this room. Let's see. So yes, transaction, and then there'd be a little bit of office furniture and a wall system. So overall, the cost would be about $42,000, and we'd lose our meeting room. So I just need to know if you want us to proceed and make those adjustments to that room, if I have your approval.
Go ahead. Could you provide us with this information? Can we delay this till December 15th? Just so we can all review it and
Yes.
understanding who's going where?
Yep, I definitely will. I'll get you guys the information on it.
Yep, absolutely.
Commissioner Olson has a comment?
Then what will happen to the current clerk of court or whatever, the other rooms, what you're swapping, and will there be additional costs to retrofit that?
That is a second set of issues that we're trying to handle one at a time because of building constraints that we have. The plan was, if we would come back with the second request, if we're going to be here for an amount of time, we would request to tear down that wall and open it up to planning. So planning, building inspections, everybody could use that window. It's more of a safety thing, handling permits back and forth rather than having people just wander around. So that would be a cost. And then we're having issues in there with, they have to run dehumidifiers, and we've had to check it for mold a couple times. So we wanted to see if we could get a window cut in. To get a window cut in is extremely expensive through the brick wall. So that would be a second request.
Mr. George?
I want to piggyback on what Tina had to say, and something I brought up is that library as well. Part of the problem that we're having with things is we don't have a clear vision on what we want for the future, whether it's the library, whether it's city hall changes, whether it's police department changes. There's been no discussion on this. What I would suggest, I'd really like to sit down with all the commission and the library board, at least to get a direction going, to have a conversation. I know it needs to be a public meeting, but if we could schedule something like that so we can get a clear vision and just have that meeting just focused on that issue, I guess that's what I'd like to suggest.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yeah, I like that idea, Commissioner George. You know, the other thing we think about is if we turn this room over to the judge and the clerk, this is our main meeting room for many, many committees and groups of people. We don't have any other big room.
I know.
And, you know, and there's a lot of things, guys. I've been here, you know, obviously a long time. I'm going to say it again. But this ductwork, this whole system of this side of the building, Dan, I bet you could stand up and say, you could walk into some of those rooms and they wouldn't pass inspection. I know there's heaters in there, there's dehumidifiers. We've got to do something. And you're right, we should have a general conversation of where we want to go within the next so many years. Go ahead, Dan.
Please.
Yep, and thank you, Commissioner President
Fargo
Dardis.
Fire Chief Dan Fuller.
Members of the commission, that is a concern of mine. All the dehumidifiers we have to run, the employee health and safety, obviously, because of kind of runs that dehumidifier. I mean, we're trying to keep some areas dry. We actually have a situation where we have to keep other areas, introduce humidity to other areas. It's kind of a weird system, and I'm Mark, you've been here the longest, and that's just a stating a fact. So you know how stuff's been chopped up, but
It has been this day from day one, 18 years ago, when we first started, when the library was over there. the ductwork, the air conditioning, it doesn't match up in this entire side.
Yeah,
It's
my
long
main-
overdue for something.
Yes, sir. And actually, my main concern, and the reason I'd come up here and speak, is running the dehumidifiers in this building. We've had a nationwide issue with dehumidifiers in the last 5 years. We ran a public safety campaign 2 years ago to get rid of recalled dehumidifiers. They're all made by the same manufacturer, even though they have different names on them, pretty much in the United States. They're all an overseas product. We had a number of fires here in the city and residential homes with these dehumidifiers running all the time. I actually had a fire in my house from a dehumidifier that caught fire when I wasn't home, and it snuffed itself out because it didn't have enough oxygen. It was in my laundry room. I was very, very lucky. Running those appliances here in City Hall, I'm really not that comfortable with. They are allowed. You can't have an extension cord that just go right to the wall, but we're taking a risk there. And when I look at the overall thing here, we're starting to take these risks to get by, and everyone sees where that's heading. So,
Thank you, Chief.
yes, sir.
Questions for him? Just Commissioner Jurdovic.
So, I've heard, and this isn't directed necessarily at you, Chief. It sounds like we have an HVAC issue. And I've heard of old ductwork. I've heard we have HVAC issues in the building. I've heard people say it's really expensive to fix, but nobody's ever told me how expensive or what expensive is, and nobody's ever, maybe we should be contracting somebody to come in and take a look at that, so that instead of just assuming, we're not assuming, but instead of thinking of it as, oh, let's build a new city hall. If there's an issue, let's get an understanding of exactly what it would cost and take to resolve that HVAC issue, instead of just taking the approach that it's really expensive and not knowing what that number is.
I know that over the years, back when Tina, when you first got here and stuff, we did look into it because we actually had the same people that put it in come back and try to fix it, and they never did. We could never get it right. But you're right, we need to look, I just think it's a good idea to have these conversations. And
I'm on board with the conversation
Well,
idea too. I just
so I'm curious.
would like to know the numbers.
Well, right, but we could most certainly get the numbers for all that system. I'm afraid, though, once we start some of this work in this old building, it'll kind of like be the old VFW. All of a sudden, now you got to start upgrading water sprinklers, Stan, and so I'm thinking it's going to be a lot more than you just think it is, which is fine. We should look into it. But does it cost us money to have a company come and say, well, this is what we should do overall, or this? Is that?
Don't quote me on this, but I do not believe so. They come in and go through. I know a few years ago, we had our building and grounds department bring somebody in and look. But we didn't engage them too far, because then they said they would start charging. But at that time, just for one part of the building, I think it was like $400,000, but I'm not sure. So we would have to get somebody back in again.
It would just be nice to be able to deal with actual numbers when we think of that issue, and so we have an alternative to understanding what would it cost to resolve that.
So could we do that? Could we give you the okay to having someone come in, Mayor, and look at it and see where?
Certainly, we can direct staff to do that, anything. I would respectfully request one thing. Commissioner George's original comments about the commission meeting with the library board, that's one meeting.
Yeah.
Let's not mix these meetings, two different dates, and, whether it's from, our expertise of our chiefs and the like, and or engineering, then that's a separate meeting to discuss
Nothing to do with
the other
the
change.
meeting, just
Two separate meetings, please.
I would make a suggestion, or if it has to be a motion, that allow Tina to find someone, or however you want to do it, Tina, to bring someone in to consult with us, or to give us some type of an overview of where we're at. Would that work?
There's a motion. Is there a second? Commissioners, everybody, all of us seconded. It's been moved and seconded to authorize Tina Fisk, City Administrator for the City of West Fargo, to reach out to consultants with regard to HVAC and the like. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. I will reach out to Buildings and Grounds in the morning and get that going.
Please continue your report.
That's all I had. And then I gave each of you a packet of our correspondence before the meeting began. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk.
Quick question, so then would Emily be on top of scheduling the 2 additional meetings then to arrange with everybody else? And make sure the public.
One could assume that she'll send out a doodle poll for
Okay.
us. Thank you, Emily. Before we move into the final stages of the meeting, I want to thank our Communications Department and West Fargo Events for some activities that took place last week. And if I don't do an adequate job, Ms. Richards, I want you to come up and straighten me out. We had a number of events last week that were spectacular, in my opinion. All you commissioners joined us for the ribbon cutting and the reopening of Cheyenne Street downtown. And it was a great event, well attended. And from there, we turned around and faced the other direction, and we did the West Fargo Christmas tree lighting, which was another very successful event. When we went to flip the switch, I think we had about 30 young people up there that helped us. And so all the commissioners, thanks for being there. That went very well. And then that same evening, the West Fargo Police Department had their awards ceremonies for the last 3 years because of COVID. And Chief Otterness and his team did a marvelous job of recognizing all the services. The life-saving awards and stuff was really a moving tribute to the men and women that we have protecting the city of West Fargo. And I don't know how many life savings awards were given out, but our officers are on scene along with, of course, Chief Fuller and his team. But it was very gratifying to see those officers recognized for the fabulous service that they provide our community. So we're grateful for that. Is there any non-agenda items that any commissioner would like to bring forward? Is there any non-agenda item that any of our department heads would like to bring forward? Hearing none. Mr. Simmons.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Olson.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you.